everyone. Now we're ready. So thank you so much. It's 11:30. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Sharon Wilder. I'm the Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer at Montgomery College. I'm really excited to be here with you all today. I'm particularly excited that we are talking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is belonging, and how mattering and belonging makes a difference in our day-to-day lives and being as successful as we can be. I know that for me personally, whenever I have felt like I belonged, I do my best, I give my best, and I feel like I have a place. And I hope that we can talk about, in the questions that you'll find on your desk, more about these topics. So I'd like to just introduce the program for today, and then I'd like to call up Dr. Mohammed Kinemoyu, who's our Interim Vice President and Provost for the Germantown campus. We're going to have our keynote speaker following him, Dr. Rachel-Yvonne Talton, who is here. Thank you so much. And then we'll have a panel presentation, and then closing out by our Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer, Mrs. Krista Leach Walker. Our students and panelists for today include Monica Lazami, Kristen Rowe, who's our Director of ADA Compliance and Title IX Coordinator, and Dr. William Dunn, who's a part-time faculty member here at the college. So let's talk a little bit about, we're going to set the stage for you today about definitions and about belonging, as well as setting the stage for our community agreements. Every time we have a Let's Talk, an equity dialogue, or any of our programming produced by the Office of Equity Inclusion, it's important to us to make sure that we have a safe space. And, last night in particular, when we got together to talk about this same topic, it was really crucial that we started that then, and that we continue to create that safe space now. So we're all on this journey together and at different places. No accusations are being made. Assume goodwill. Be present and engage, and listen with openness and respect. And we ask you to talk to each other, not about each other. And then also take responsibility for your own learning, participation, and comfort level. Sometimes we are sharing and realize that maybe we have in our minds overshared, and I know I felt that way before, but then I felt very comforted by my community and being vulnerable in the moment. And I want people in this room to feel that we have a space for conversation. So our topics today is the meaning of belonging and mattering, the meaning and purpose of the sense of belonging and mattering, and then what does belonging look like from your perspective as a student, as a faculty member, as staff member, as administrator, as a community member, and then what does the practice of cultivating an environment that supports and aspires to be an institution of true belonging look like? And lastly, a tough question. When did you feel that you didn't belong? So Montgomery College defines belonging as a feeling of one's physical, emotional, and psychological safety, the feeling of truly being welcomed and included. Dr. Kinemoyu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wilder. Good Friday. I want to make sure it's still morning. Good Friday morning. My name is Mohammed Kinemoyu, and I'm the Interim Vice President and Provost of this beautiful campus here, and as well as the college-wide STEM unit. Welcome to Germantown and the 2023 Fall Equity Dialogue. It's great to see all of you here this morning. I understand we have the privilege of hosting a wonderful guest speaker who will help us explore the ways in which we all can nurture and cultivate a sense of belonging for everyone at MC. What an important and timely topic, particularly as circumstances in our world and country seems to be promoting divisiveness and polarization. The exchange of ideas and knowledge among people of diverse backgrounds and perspectives is a hallmark of higher education, one that the college is committed to achieving. I am proud to work at a college that values a sense of belonging and connectedness and provides its employee and students with opportunities to explore and discover what connectedness means to them, as well as to those who are different than themselves. Did you know that one of the 4 goals in our newly revised strategic plan is to cultivate a sense of belonging for everyone at the college? The college has prioritized its desire to advance a culture of true belonging. I look forward to each one of us enhancing our mindset and skill set today and in the days to come to make MC a place that is indeed welcoming to all. Before I close, I would like to thank Dr. Sharon Wilder and her team for envisioning and implementing every detail of this event. Please, a round of applause. I'd also like to thank each individual, faculty, staff, administrator, and students who will be part of the panel discussion this morning. It takes a brave and vulnerable soul to sit on a panel like this, so give yourself applause. And finally, thank you for choosing to be here today. I have no doubt your time will be well spent. Thank you so much.
I'm going old school today. Good morning.
Good morning.
Really?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to you. We are all so blessed to be here in this moment. So I just want to say to you, good morning to you. Good morning. That felt good. Thank you. Sharon said they're going to mic you because normally she knows I would be in the audience touching you and feeling you and have like 90% of the speeches that I give globally. I'm out there talking, being all animated with slides behind me. But today I wanted to go old school. I want to have a conversation with you. I hope that you'll give me the grace to do that. Will you? Is that all right? I have paper. I don't even do paper. This is like my speech printed out because I don't want you to miss a word of what I have to say to you today. It's so important. It's almost like food and water, right? This idea that we need to create a sense of belonging and that we all deserve to feel that we belong. So I'm actually going to read to you today. Now I'm going to go off script. You don't know me yet, but you will, okay? I am going to go off script a little bit. But I want to make sure that you get every single word that I have to say to you. So usually when I speak, I do so extemporaneously, but I have written down this speech today because I want to have a conversation with you. I want to talk to you about a concept that touches the very essence of our humanity, belonging. The word carries profound weight. It transcends time and place, and it is woven into the fabric of our lives. In the next minutes, and my shortest speech is usually about 9 days, nonstop, I invite you to come with me on a journey to understand, to embrace, and to harness the power of belonging. Now, Maslow included in belonging in his hierarchy of needs, emphasizing its importance to our well-being. Now let me introduce you to the science of belonging, which Dr. Sharon talked about earlier. Studies have shown that when people feel a sense of belonging, their physical and mental health improves. It helps to lower stress levels, and we're all a little bit stressed out right now, right? If you look at the world around us, there's a lot going on, and a lot of it is kind of negative. It helps to improve immune function and increases life satisfaction. Belonging is a recipe for a happier, healthier life. But what happens when this ingredient is missing from that recipe? We all have a story, a time when we felt like outsiders. These moments can be painful and traumatizing. Maybe you're the only woman in a room full of men, or the only person of color in a sea of faces that don't look like yours. Maybe you're different in ways that people can't see, like being learning impaired or culturally different. These can all make us feel that we don't have a place in a room or at the table. I remember my days as a VP of banking at National City. Yes, I am a recovered banker, where I was often the only woman in the room, and that was so-and-so years ago. I started my business 21 years ago, and I'm only 28 now, so no math is allowed in this room. And they nicknamed me the white guy whisperer. Yes, ma'am, I did say the white guy whisperer, because I was so often invited to rooms that were exclusive, but I knew how it felt to be rejected. Sometimes because I was the only, being overlooked for promotions and advancement, or when I was advanced, my work was questioned in ways that others' work wasn't. These experiences shaped my journey and fueled my commitment to understand the dynamics of belonging. So much so that I'm writing a book right now on global belonging with my colleague and friend, Nicole Barnes-Marshall, who's the Chief Diversity Officer of Pinterest, under the guidance of the father of belonging. His name is John A. Powell, and he is amazing. Google him, everybody. He's taught us about targeted universalism, an approach that supports the needs of particular groups, even the politically powerful and those in the majority, while reminding everyone that we are all a part of the same social and civic and human fabric. As such, targeted universalist policies are more resistant to the critiques that government programs serve only special interests, whoever that might be. But belonging is not just about moments. It's about creating a sustained environment where every individual feels that sense of connection. As Sharon stated last night, and Dr. Mohammed, whose name I will not destroy, but Dr. Mohammed, thank you for your kind comments this morning and inspiring comments this morning, and thank you for all that you do for the institution. That goal 2 of our strategic plan is clear: to cultivate a sense of belonging for every single person at Montgomery College. As the founder and CEO of Synergy, I have had the pleasure of working with global organizations to foster a sense of belonging. including Amazon and Pinterest, Toyota, Mars, the Federal Aviation Association, and many others. As a matter of fact, I came here from Memphis, Tennessee, my first time in Memphis, as a matter of fact, where I was working for 2 days on a strategic planning process with the executives of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. I have seen firsthand the power of belonging, not just for individuals, but for teams, communities, and institutions. The journey to belonging is about a commitment to change, to grow, and to become more inclusive. So let's delve into the many aspects of belonging. Together, we will envision a future where Montgomery College shines as a beacon of belonging, and through our actions, not just our belief, not just our thoughts, but through our actions, we will make this vision a reality. So what does it mean? As Sharon mentioned this morning, a sense of belonging at its core is the innate human desire to connect, to feel accepted, and to be part of something greater than ourselves. It is the feeling that we matter and that our presence and contribution is valued and that we have a place in our communities and in our world. Research shows that belongingness is a fundamental human need, and we all have a drive to maintain lasting, positive, and impactful personal, academic, and professional relationships. This is essential to human behavior, just as essential, as I said earlier, as food and water. Now let me introduce you to a few of the pillars of belonging from my research and from the research of others. These have been studied and documented through the realms of psychology, management, and sociology. The first pillar is inclusion. Inclusion is about creating an environment where every individual, regardless of their background, every individual feels valued, they feel respected, and they feel that their contributions matter. The second pillar is trust. You see my big smile on my face? Trust. That's what my PhD research is in. Every time I say the word, I get all giggly and fuzzy and warm inside, because really trust is the currency. Ooh, I see the nodding of heads, girl. Trust is the currency upon which every relationship is formed. Now that's a different speech with a different retreat, but it is such an important topic and obviously very close to my heart. Trust, again, is the currency of every healthy relationship. When we trust that we are safe, that our contributions are recognized, and that our well-being is considered, our sense of belonging flourishes. The third pillar is empathy. I have goosebumps just saying that, right? I look at this gentleman here and I want to say to him, I see you. I see you, my brother. I see you. And I hope that you see me. Empathy is the ability to lead to stronger interpersonal connections because we're able to feel what someone else is feeling. Not in the way that they feel it, but to understand that we're all humans. When we show empathy, we acknowledge each other's experiences and emotions, and we foster a deeper connection and a stronger sense of belonging. The fourth pillar is authenticity. You see how I sat over there and said, I'm sorry I'm not as cute in person? That's me. I could come up here and be all Dr. Rachel-y, but that's not me. I am silly. I'm smart. Yes, I know that. I'm an expert in the areas of trust and psychological safety, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and I know that. But I'm also as silly as hell. I also love to laugh. I'm also the person that you come to when you have a problem. I will stay with you until we solve it, believe me, right? That's my authentic self. It is about being true to yourself and encouraging others to do the same. Authentic people are more likely to inspire trust and commitment, and when we can be genuine, when I can shake my head and move my hips and be me, how much more of me do you get? How much more of me do my clients get? But if I have to turn into something else, then they're only getting a small percentage of everything I have to offer. The fifth pillar is belief in potential. Belief in potential. That means recognizing and nurturing the unique strengths and talents of every person. Studies have found that people who receive support and encouragement to develop their potential experience higher levels of well-being and higher levels of belonging. When we believe in each other's potential, we create an environment where growth and belonging go hand in hand. As we explore these pillars, I want you to reflect on your own experiences. Think about the times when you truly felt included, when you trusted those around you, when you experienced empathy, when you could be authentic, be you, and when someone believed in your potential. These moments stand out in your memory as instances of profound connection. But my friends, we have to acknowledge that there are times when these pillars crumble, when the sense of belonging is threatened. Belonging is not always a warm hug. Sometimes it is a cold shoulder. The reality is that exclusion exists, even in the most inclusive environments. Let me say that one more time for the folks in the back, okay? We are standing in a beacon of inclusion. A lot of work to do, lots of work left to do, but we are standing in a beacon of inclusion. And yet, there are instances every day where people are made to feel that they don't belong, right here, in this room, in these rooms, and on this campus. So whether it's in the classroom or the workplace or in society at large, there are moments that all of us, yes, my white friend here, yes, me, yes, you, all of us have felt that we do not belong. I want to tell you a little story about when I was 11 years old. I attended a private girls' school in Shaker Heights, Ohio, called Hathaway Brown. I was one of only 5 Black girls in my class, and of course, I was on scholarship. My mom was a teacher, so you can imagine how I felt. But I've always been a friendly person, so I found my people, right? One of those people, we'll call her Robin, was one of my very good white friends. She invited me to her mansion, and I mean, it was like 10,000 square feet. It was an actual mansion. I think it was probably my first time visiting one. And her mom was making us a snack in the kitchen. Her mom said something disparaging about those Black people. I said, I'm Black. I'm Black. I was shocked. I was hurt, to say the least. And her mom said to me, well, you're not really Black. I was 11 years old and I still feel that, right? I said, no, I'm Black. My mom is Black. My dad is Black. My mom's 18 brothers and sisters are Black. Everybody in my family, or most of them, are Black. I'm Black. She said, no, not really. I felt so small, so discounted. She had taken away my Blackness while not inviting me into her whiteness, and so I disappeared. I disappeared. It would break my heart to know that I ever made another human being feel that way. And I want to take a moment now to say that all of us make mistakes, and I may have, at some point in my life, made someone feel that way. And I'm going to take this moment right now to say I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. You see, exclusion does not discriminate. It affects all of us, students, staff, faculty, administrators, facilities workers, food service workers, all of us alike. It is not limited to one role or one identity. Anyone can experience exclusion, and the consequences can be overwhelming. As we confront the pain of exclusion, it is critical to remember that this is not an unsolvable problem. Just as exclusion can be a collective experience, inclusion can be a shared goal. But to make it so, we have to acknowledge and to empathize with the pain of exclusion. We have to listen to the stories of those who have felt like outsiders. Their experiences are a mirror reflecting the cracks in society's foundation. And it is our collective responsibility to repair those fractures. The pain of exclusion is a stark reminder that our journey toward belonging is not always smooth, but it is precisely these challenges that offer us an opportunity to create environments where everyone feels valued, heard, and psychologically safe. Psychological safety is the belief that you can speak up, that you can take risks, and you can express your true self without fear of reprisals. Psychological safety requires active listening and empathy. And when someone shares their experiences of exclusion or challenges within the community, it is our duty to listen to them without judgment. Just as we aspire to create spaces where everyone belongs, we must also create spaces where everyone's voice is heard. We all have a role to play. We all also have individual responsibility. It is my job to speak up. I didn't know that at 11 years old. I didn't know that I could even say anything back, so I just disappeared. But now I know I can speak up for myself, and I can speak up for Antonio if someone says something mean or disparaging or that makes him feel that he is not just as valuable as every other person walking this face of this earth. But it is also his responsibility that if something happens or someone does something disparaging, for him to speak up and say, that makes me uncomfortable. That makes me feel, please don't do that. That makes me feel bad. We are responsible for doing that. So let's explore what we can all do. And I want to start with the students, the lifeblood of every educational institution, and certainly the lifeblood here at Montgomery College. Number one, inclusivity in your circles. I want you to be mindful of the cliques and the groups that form in the student body, and try to reach out to those who seem on the outside. Start to include them. Even just 1 or 2 a month. Just reach out to someone who doesn't look like you, doesn't sound like you, is not in your sorority, doesn't speak your language, maybe doesn't speak a language at all because they're mute. Reach out to them. By widening your social circles, you create opportunities for others to have a sense of belonging. Number 2, speak up. Speak up. If you witness exclusion or discriminatory behavior, please do not stay silent. Your voice to challenge these actions and encourage others to do the same. Remember that your words and deeds here as a student can influence the culture of the campus. Number 3, empathetic listening. I want you to actively listen to the experiences of your peers. Understand that everyone comes from a unique background with their own challenges and their own triumphs. And number 4, join initiatives. Many institutions have clubs and organizations dedicated to promoting diversity and inclusion. I heard about a new one last night, on night 1 of this session, called Sidewalk Talks. I'm really excited about that, right? Consider joining or supporting even as an ally. Let me say that one more time. Even as an ally, we can support one another. Next, let's talk about the educators and the support staff. You are the backbone of this institution, and you really have an influence on how students' lives are led here. Here's a few things that you can do. Number 1, inclusive teaching. Inclusive teaching. Faculty, please make a conscious effort to incorporate diverse perspectives in your curriculum. Ensure that your teaching materials and methods are truly representative. Number 2, mentoring and support. Offer mentorship and support to students who may be struggling or facing challenges, because you can make all the difference in a student's life, and I know that from personal experience. Teachers have changed my life. Number 3, advocate for inclusivity. Use your position to advocate for inclusivity here at Montgomery College. The policies and practices that promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging will help to bring Goal 2 to life. And finally, continuous learning. Stay informed about the latest developments in DEI. Finally, to our administrators, Dr. Muhammad, you're one. Number 1, inclusive policies. Develop and enforce policies that prioritize diversity and inclusion. This is personal as well. Ensure that you are living those policies and not just writing them down. Number 2, representation matters. Representation matters. Work to increase the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging across the institution at all levels of management. Number 3, resource allocation. Allocate resources to really support DEIB initiatives. That can mean money, but it doesn't have to. It can mean spaces, it can mean people, it can mean time. And number 4, accountability. This again is another retreat called Toxic Rock Stars. Get rid of them. Hold individuals and departments accountable for their actions and their decisions related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Okay, so they literally left out the rest of my speech. I don't care. I have you for what, another 4 or 5 minutes? Yep. You know what? Would you mind if I got my laptop? Because there's like one exercise that I want the words for. Do you mind? Are you sure? Okay. There's something that I have to share. You have 5 minutes?
Yeah. That you need to share that screen.
Oh no, it's not sharing. It's words. It's words. And I think you'll understand why this was so important. I hope when I share it with you, because it really does matter. and at the end of the day, it is the foundation of belonging. Our final group of people are our unsung heroes. They're often overlooked, but essential to our daily lives on campus. They are the facilities and food service staff. Let me say that one more time, because a lot of times we ignore that they exist. They are our facilities and food service staff. They too have a role in fostering belonging. And here are a few things that they can do and we can do to support them. Acknowledge their contributions. Recognize and appreciate the hard work that they do. Simple acts of kindness, just saying thank you, can go a long way in making them feel valued. Number 2, inclusive spaces. Ensure that the campus spaces feel inclusive to everyone. Number 3, training and development. Provide opportunities for your unionized, hourly, workers to learn more about diversity, equity, inclusion, and for them to feel they belong as well. And then finally, create feedback channels for them. As we reflect on our collective responsibility, let's not forget that every action, no matter how small, has the potential to create a ripple. A kind word, a supportive gesture, or a commitment to inclusive practices can transform our campus into a place where every individual, without exception, feels a sense of belonging. In the tapestry of human existence, belonging stands as a thread that weaves us together. As we conclude our journey into the heart of belonging, we are reminded that it is more than a concept, that it is a lifeline, literally a beacon of hope in a world sometimes overshadowed by hate and division. It is a global embrace that transcends the limitations of geography and culture. It beckons us to recognize our shared humanity and to celebrate the diversity as a source of strength, to extend our hand in friendship to all corners of the world. The challenges of discrimination and prejudice and divisiveness, they may attempt to impede this global sense of belonging. I'm just thinking about the fact that all the wars and all the killing and all of the hatred that's going on, they may attempt to impede the sense of belonging, but they will not prevail. For as long as hearts are open to love and minds committed to unity, the power of belonging will endure. The face of hate may be huge, casting shadows again of fear and war and hatred and mass shootings and distrust. But it is in the face of hate that our commitment to belonging shines most brightly. Hate seeks to divide, but love, empathy, and unity hold the power to heal. Together we can tear down the walls of hate that hate builds and replace them with bridges of understanding. We can and we must stand up to hatred in all of its forms, for belonging is our greatest defense against the darkness that seeks to engulf us. As I mentioned in my invitation to this event, there are 36 dimensions of diversity, ways in which we are different from one another, including race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, and many more. These are ways that we are different, but they are also ways that we are alike. We are all humans being. Let's try to be better at it every day. Let's celebrate our differences and cherish our commonalities. Now, I'd like for you to humor me. Would you do that for me? If I say please? Yes? Okay. I'd like for you to close your eyes for a moment. I want you to take a deep breath in. Breathe out slowly. And I want you to think about a time that you felt most cared for, where you felt loved and supported. I see some of you smiling. Hold on to that thought. Just hang on to it for one more second. Take another deep breath in. Breathe out slowly. Now slowly open your eyes and look at one another with that thought in mind. Something just happened in here, and that's a beautiful thing. Thank you for joining me on this expedition into the power of belonging. May it resonate with you, reminding you of the extraordinary capacity of the human heart to love, to accept, and to belong. May God bless you. Thank you for listening.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Wow. I'm like in a warm hug myself right now. I don't know about you all, but I'm definitely feeling that. Thank you so much. Your words were wonderful, and I hope those in the Zoom room could collectively feel that as well. So I'm going to bring up our panelists now, and Dr. Rachel, you could have the first seat. And then Dr. Dunn, please join us. Kristen Rowe, will you please join us? Monica, where are you? You would join us. So let me just set the stage for this this topic or this discussion. So we have several questions that Dr. Rachel's going to facilitate with the panelists here. What does belonging look like from your perspective? What does the practice of cultivating an environment that supports and aspires to be an institution of true belonging look like? And when did you feel that you didn't belong? And with that, Dr. Rachel.
Thank you so much, Sharon, and thank you all for going on that journey with me. Now, here's the good part. You get to hear from these incredible panelists, and I'm so excited to have this discussion with all of you. So I want to know what belonging looks like from your perspective. I want you to talk a little bit about who you are and what you do here first, if you wouldn't mind, in case those on Zoom or in the room don't know who you are. But really talk to us about what a belonging looks like from your perspective as a human, as an employee of Montgomery College. We all have our own mics. We're fancy.
Good afternoon. My name is Kristen Rowe, and I am the Director of ADA Compliance and Title IX Coordinator here at Montgomery College. And I have the privilege of having a job that lets me really focus on a daily basis on ensuring that people feel like they belong, that they actually belong, and that barriers to their belonging or not belonging are addressed. So I feel really fortunate to be able to do that work.
That's beautiful. That's what I call my God job, right? So I get to wake up every day. I literally call my work my God job. That makes it, you feel very responsible for your work, right? It very much so. Thank you for all you do.
Well, hi, my name is Monica. I am a 48-year-old freshman at Montgomery College.
Yes!
And the reason that I am a freshman, and this will be really quick.
No,
straight
please.
out of high school, I went to UMCP. I was on a kind of scholarship because they were trying to pull in minorities,
right.
Latinos. And when I was there, I had the smarts, I had the grades, I had the drive, but I didn't have activities or events or others that looked like me, that made me feel like I belonged. So when you're 17 and by then I was almost 18 and I'm an adult and I get to make my decisions, I said, school's not for me. And so I went to make money, good money. For 30 plus years, I've worked with the who's of Washington, D.C. in big corporate law. but I was always passed up because there's no degree. I now have an 8-year-old, I'm a single mom, divorced, with an 8-year-old wonderful Afro-Latina. She's the reason I'm going to school, and she's the reason I'm on this panel, because she experienced something similar with not belonging as an Afro-Latina in her school. So I'm excited to be here. I was here, well, not here, I was at the other one last night, and it was phenomenal. So I know that we're in for something good today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking it out and coming back. Thank you for standing up for your Afro-Latina amazing princess. And we just can't wait to see what happens to and for you as you move forward. Thank you.
I guess good afternoon,
everyone. Oh, is it afternoon? Yes, it's afternoon.
My name is William Dunn. I am a faculty here. I teach math and English. I won't say part-time because last night, faculty reminded me that there's no part-time. We all faculty. There's no part-time in planning.
Right.
In my day job, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. What does belonging look like? It's accepting someone's story. What I do in class is I start off class, the first few classes, in finding out their story. And I tell them a story. And I tell them that titles are secondary. Human beings are first, and that my title is professor, but I'm a human being. And so that's what belonging. And for a second, I'm gonna share with you all part of how I tell the story with the students. I told them a story about a young black high school cheerleader who got pregnant at 16, as one might say, mistakes. And a few years later, she made another mistake per se, had another child. She ended up having 3 children by the time that she was 21 years old. So imagine the stereotypes of that young black female, even within her own community. And I told them about that. And I even asked the class, what do you all think about that? What are some of the dynamics and stereotypes of languages that are used for people of that nature? And I told them about that young female. And I tell them that she ended up actually having 2 other kids by the time that she was 28 years old. Barely out of high school, didn't have a lot. And how, when we talk about cultivating a sense of belonging, imagine the community and the stereotypes that go with that. And it becomes a trend. And I let them know that her youngest daughter, her oldest daughter didn't graduate from high school. Her oldest son didn't graduate from high school. He had a baby at 16. She had a baby at 18. But she had 2 other kids. One went on to become a well-known officer, served in the military 20-something years. She had a son that was involved in negative activity, struggled to be accepted, only was accepted by the community of the streets, right? And his sense of belonging that was his community right there, right? We all have a different belonging group. But that son also was a superb athlete who went to school on a basketball scholarship, who turned the tables. He went on to get his associate's degree, his master's degree, his doctor's degree. He became an author. This year, he became the Lifetime Presidential Achievement Award, and he's sitting on this panel right now.
What?
So, to me, belonging is finding out somebody else's story. Most of the times, people won't look at me and know that, right? Because titles are secondary. But when you're finding out somebody's story, you can easily accept or understand where they're coming from, which creates a relationship that can be everlasting when you find out where someone is. So I encourage everyone to start with that first. And that's what we do in our class first, is we find out everybody's story first. Because when you're comfortable telling your story, you're comfortable asking questions. And when you're comfortable asking questions, you're comfortable learning. And when you're comfortable learning, you're comfortable growing. And so that's what cultivating belonging is to me.
Yes, thank you. Wow. The stories are just amazing, 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 amazing. So tell me what the practice of cultivating an environment that supports and aspires to support an institution of belonging look like. So what does that question mean? What does that question mean? That means not only the sense of belonging, that means the practices. What the practices? How do we operationalize? It's a $5 word, y'all, but it really means how do we bring to life this idea of belonging and ensure that it's working, right? I'll leave that to anybody. Anybody can answer that first.
I think part of what we're doing now is a beginning step where people are in a room of different backgrounds, stories, and, being able to create that. It's an uncomfortability when people don't feel like they know someone else. Mm-hmm. And we see that in our practices. We see people get on the elevator and don't speak. One of the things I tell the students is that we're going to start with the basics. My grandmother always talked about inside out. She was 102 years old before she passed away. And she used to say that, son, there is no rule that anyone ever has to speak to you. She says, you can't lose your job, you can't get arrested, you can't get in trouble. No one has to actually speak to you. But when someone takes the time to acknowledge you, you should speak back. So I think that one small step that we can start with is acknowledging each other by just saying good morning and hello, just like you did. So I think that if we could start there, people would feel comfortable having that second conversation. Because I think if you can't speak to someone and feel comfortable talking to them, you're not going to feel comfortable learning anything from them. So I think if we can create environments where we can at least acknowledge people's existence and their presence, and we can do that. And I think that especially as faculty, it's a learned behavior, but it's also a practice that we should be doing. We should be showing students that if faculty doesn't have a relationship with each other, how can you expect us to have a relationship with you as a student? So I think that we should start in that space by at least starting with acknowledging and having conversations with each other about just greeting. So good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I was thinking about this last night as everyone was talking, and I thought, what does cultivating mean to begin with? When you are cultivating, the seed to to what you're growing doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It's toiling of the land sometimes, right? Hard land, depends where you're planting. But it also, I think, in a college, what one of the practices would be that when you're hiring, when the school is appointing leaders, professors, deans, what have you, that it's not just what's on paper, right? It's not just their title, their abilities, or their connections, but that they also have a heart for inclusion, that they have a vision for making or creating that sense of belonging, because it has to start with leadership. And if Montgomery College wants to practice what it's preaching, that's where we have to, I think, make sure, because everything trickles down. And, as a parent, you think your child isn't looking, they're not watching, they're not listening, they may be on their iPads with their headphones. They are. And so as students, as faculty, as staff, as any role that the person plays in this school, we're watching, we're looking. And these events is what excites me about being a part of Montgomery College, because unlike, and I'm not saying anything bad of UMCP, I'm sure now they probably have other programs, but for the first time, I feel that I belong. And I think that for Montgomery College to continue to cultivate that, it starts with, who are we hiring? Who are we putting in that position? And do they have a heart? Do they have the same vision? Because you can't have leadership that does not value and see this. And that's my thought.
No, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Bring us home.
I see. I think it really requires being curious.
Oh my God, I was thinking the same thing. I was literally thinking exactly the same thing. Yeah.
So, in my role as a Title IX coordinator, ADA coordinator, I deal a lot with policies. big P policies and big federal rules. And I talk about this is the framework of this. But the truth is that even with our policies and all of the things that we try to roll out, it doesn't serve everyone well all the time. And I often receive emails and phone calls from people in our community who say, this didn't work for me. This didn't make me feel like I belonged. This created a barrier for me. And in those moments, I have to get curious. I have to say, well, let's sit down and talk about that. Because if you can share with me how you didn't feel like you were part of the college, then maybe we can do something about it. So, our policies are here to serve us well, but if we're not curious about those moments when they fail us, we fail to get better.
That's right. Amazing. And I think, interestingly enough, just like sort of the last question, your responses built on each other, right? They literally did. The first response was to say hello, like to acknowledge the human being. Just start there, because we're not going to get anywhere if we don't start there, right? And then we said, it's about the people that we're hiring and not about, again, we do need to have that toxic rock star discussion because it's prevalent in educational institutions. These people are rock stars. They're brilliant, and a lot of time they bring dollars and fame and money to the college. But sometimes, if the behaviors that they have, I'm not even just talking about their thoughts. I'm talking about their unconscious biases turning into actions that actually hurt people. We have to make sure that we're both hiring people who have a heart and mind and soul for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that we're holding those accountable, no matter how much money they bring to the institution, no matter how great they are to, one group of people, if they're not great to everyone. And sometimes you can work with them. I have worked with toxic rock stars that we have turned into absolute human rock stars. Absolutely. So there's no reason to throw people out. There's always hope. And then third, you have to stay curious. Even if you do part 1 and part 2, if you don't continue to question yourself and make sure that you're doing the right thing, then you'll stay there, right? So I believe they built on each other very nicely. Thank you. All right. So I have a question for you, and this is so I've talked to you about my PhD in trust. The definition of trust, y'all, is the willingness to be vulnerable. I'm going to repeat that. The definition of trust is the willingness to be vulnerable. So if I trust you, you can hurt me. The people you trust the most can hurt you the most. Really. Right? And so I think that's an important place to start when I ask this question. I'm going to ask that this room be a safe space. I'm going to ask that we agree that this is going to be a safe space, even though we're on Zoom. Hi, people. I want this to be a safe space because I really want people to be able to be vulnerable. So I'm going to ask you to trust us, to trust me, and trust our audience. Tell me about when you felt that you didn't belong and what that did to you.
I think I've felt that way my entire life. And I think that's why I'm 48 and starting from the bottom. I am a first-generation US-born Latina woman, fair-skinned. So when I went to school with other Latinos in Washington, D.C., who were darker, more in the indigenous side, and what have you, and we would go to, stand in line in homeroom, and you had ESOL, you had AP, advanced, the English speakers, and then you had African American and everything else in the middle, right? my Latino brothers and sisters saw me kind of as a sellout. I'm fair-skinned. This is my first language was English, even though we spoke Spanish too. And so there was always this feeling of, you're not one of us because you didn't go through what we went through with trying to come over to this country and the struggles and what have you. Now, needless to say, my parents came in the late 60s where there wasn't anything in Spanish and English. So they had a different set of, challenges. But I always felt left out from my Latino brothers and sisters. I am totally fluent in Spanish, and I know the grammar and I know everything probably better than they did. But they always made me feel that because of the differences, I didn't belong. And when I was with my white brothers and sisters, it's not that they just looked at me and made me feel that way. They would say it. Don't you belong in Easel? Even though now I have an accent in English, but even though I was fluent, I didn't look like they did. And it was this idea that it was exclusive to the white students to be in these advanced placements and these classes. I only felt welcome, which is very interesting if you look at my group of friends. I only felt somewhat accepted and like I belonged.
When you were with sisters.
When I was with brothers and sisters.
I already knew it, right? I'm like,
Mommy.
Right.
I always had a seat on the bus. I always had someone who would, when they saw me being, cast out, they would bring me in. Right. Because even though I am light-skinned, I am a brown woman. And they understood that. And so I've felt that way my entire life because there's always going to be that something. We're all different. And I lived the rest of my life, unfortunately, trying to be everything for everyone. So I became a chameleon. And just at 48, I have an 8-year-old. I mean, I started really late. I didn't get married till I was 30 and divorced by the time I was 40. And I realized this late in life that it's important to feel like you belong to something, because if you don't belong to anything, then you become anything to everybody else except yourself.
Girl, she preaching, right?
So I have too many examples of where I felt like I haven't belonged. And this journey back to school, to education, to seeing things through different glasses and seeing not just the diversity, but listening is what's helping me to finally at 48 feel like I belong to something. And it starts with my education. And I also belong to my 8-year-old because she makes sure she reminds me of that. But yeah, that would be my share.
Thank you so much. Thank you so very much for sharing that. So that's what vulnerability is. Can you give her a round of applause, please?
So I'd like to talk about gender and gender over my life cycle and how it's impacted me. I was born a biological female. I still identify as female. So this isn't a story about me changing my gender, but more about how the world has reacted to me based on their perceptions of my gender. I remember being a little girl and having long hair that was always knotted and uncomfortable, and I never knew how to manage it. And asking my mom one day, can we just cut it off? Can I have short hair? And she said, sure. And we went and we got my hair cut, and I loved it. No more knots, no more tangles, no more ponytails, ribbons, all of those things. I didn't have to worry about them anymore. And I was so happy about that short haircut until people started saying, but don't you worry people think you're a boy? And I remember thinking, I'm not worried about that. I mean, what's wrong with being a boy? I've got friends who are boys, and I know I'm a girl. It's just a haircut. But people were really concerned for me, which I found odd, that they were worried that I would be thought of as a boy because of my hair. And then I think a couple of years later about playing with the boys in the neighborhood. And we were great friends. We all grew up together. And I grew up in the era of Star Wars, like the original Star Wars. And I always had to be Princess Leia when I played with the boys. They could be Luke Skywalker, Han Solo. They were no more Luke Skywalker or Han Solo than I was. But because I was the girl, I always had to be Princess Leia. And there was no room in our imaginary play for me as a girl to imagine to be a boy. So there was my gender limiting me and my world of imagination and play. That's how powerful it is. And then I remember when I was 12 years old, my dad, he was a hunter, and he asked me if I wanted to get my hunting license to go out hunting with him. And I thought, sure, it's something to do with my father. But we would go out, and men would see my father with his daughter, and they would say, "Isn't that so nice of your daughter to do this for you because you don't have a boy? Isn't that nice of her, knowing you probably would have liked to have a boy?" Wow, I just really wanted to be with my dad.
And you were right there.
I was right there. I was right there. Although it was a surprise to my dad the first time a deer came, and I was supposed to shoot the deer. And he called me on the radio, said, "There's a deer coming towards you." And he expected me to shoot it, and I just let it go by. And then he comes running down the hill, and he says, "Why didn't you shoot it?" So, "Well, Dad, I was never going to shoot a deer. I was only out here to be with you." Right, exactly. So, and then fast forward to my life as a mom. I have 4 amazing sons.
And where did they come from? I mean, really.
I gave birth to all of them. And I gave birth to one, and then 3 years later, I gave birth to a set of twins. And then 3 years later, a single boy. But I can tell you that each one of them has been my pride and my joy. But my heart breaks for them at times, because how many times have people said to me in front of them, "Are you sad you don't have a girl?" Or they'll look at my youngest and say, "You were trying for the girl, weren't you?" Because who would have one boy and then 2 more boys and then go for something else? I mean, obviously you were trying for that girl, right? And how unfair is that to my boys to be inundated with this message that my hopes and aspirations may have been damaged when he turned out to be my 4th son. And I know people don't mean it in a harmful way, but it does harm. It hurts. It hurts. They are my perfect children that were born of me. They are the ones who are supposed to be here. And I have no expectation for who they will be as boys in the world. They will be who they are. And so, we talked about earlier the work that I do here at the college. I have responsibility for ensuring that nobody faces gender-based discrimination here at the college. And I take that very seriously, because in small ways, I've seen that sense of belonging or sense of labeling impact my life. Not in traumatic ways. I'm not sharing anything traumatic, but it's just this story that starts from the very beginning, and it continues over and over and over.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Amazing, 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 amazing. I think about your reaction to it. Nothing traumatic, but somebody else may experience the same thing in a very different way. Your strength and resilience and ability to say, that's their problem, not mine. I mean, even that little thing could be someone else could be really traumatized by those stories. You know what I mean? So I just right? Like, how do we expand the way that we think about belonging? So when you were talking to me, I was like, oh, really. So I just want you to know, it didn't traumatize you, but might really hurt somebody else. Yeah. You're welcome. All right, you're going to get vulnerable. I want vulnerability because you trust us.
That's interesting. What about it? Similar to my colleague Monica, my entire life I'm a black male in America. What else can I say? I could end with that. if we want to be real honest. And it's no battle or competition because we see it still happening right now. I told y'all a little bit about my story. You know, I grew up with I'm a product of a high school parent. So I was that student that used to hear about your mom probably can't do this and can't do that because of the fact that she had so many kids, multiple baby daddies within our own community. I can remember my aunts. I grew up in the era, and some of my colleagues know about the black church, and when they would have altar call, and people will, if you're not familiar with that, and that's when people will come to the altar to pray for someone. And I can remember my aunt, my mom's oldest sister, them walking down to pray for my mother because she had so many kids within my own community. And then I'd walk right outside my community, and I can't tell you about how many times that, I've been stopped. I was a juvenile probational counselor, and I went to go visit kids. I always felt that having a relationship was more important than anything. My grandmother used to say that relationships will take you further than a dollar will ever take you. So learn to build that first. So in every field that I was in, I created that. So although they were youth, and I had most of the convicted felons, they were 14 and 15-year-olds. And so if they got out, I still had a relationship with them. And I remember going to visit, one of them, and, obviously my parents, this is who I am. This is my authentic self. And I can remember going to visit one of them, and when the officer was in their neighborhood, while I was visiting them because of my authentic self, he had me put my hands on the top of the police car and ask me, why am I here? And I was like, well, I have my credentials. I am a juvenile PO. Of course, he told me never to put my hands, anywhere outside of on top of that. So in front of all of these youth, they got a chance to see how no matter who you are as a black male, that you still are in a space of being judged. Let's move forward. I fell into this academic space, so I can tell you all now, half the people probably on this campus as administrator wouldn't have even spoken to me as a young man. Wouldn't even had anything to do with me. I was an angry, troubled, young, black kid growing up between New York City and Virginia. My father lived in New York. He was an alcoholic. My mom, as I told you, was in Virginia. I just bounced back and forth. I went to several different high schools. My community was people in the neighborhood, guys in the streets. Sports saved my life, but it didn't save me from all the things that would happen in my life. Every single day, I was still being challenged, just being a black male, whether it be within my community or outside my community. And so I fell into this academic space and how I did it. Well, one is, just like most black males who are good at sports, I was a superb athlete. I was a boxer. I went to the Junior Olympics. I was a football player, ran track. I was good, but and just like them, that was gonna be my meal ticket to take care of my family. That's it. That's how I lived my life thinking that. And of course, I think I shared with Krista that, I end up also chasing professional sports for a few years, and it didn't work out. But I fell into this academic space, and how I fell into this space was based on not feeling sense of belonging, and a sense of continuous stereotype. So I joined the military to play All-Army basketball only to get deployed to Iraq. So that changed up everything after chasing professional sports for a while. And when I came out, I still had this GI Bill funding that I knew nothing about because I was only going to college because of sports, so I didn't really know anything about past college. And they said, if you don't use this money, you're gonna lose it. So I said, well, let me just take a class. I took a class, and I don't mind saying, University of Maryland. Military was paying for it. Like, I just take a class, see what happens. So, I met all of the stereotypes from the very first day of class. But this is how I fell into this academic space that brought me here. It was a graduate program that I was in, okay? And then I didn't have my book the very first day of class, right? There's like a lot of students, the book was on back order. I probably waited too late. I didn't know where the actual building was, so I was late. So when I walked in, the classes started, they did all the introductions and everyone had kind of talked about themselves. And, you know, of course I came to the end and I didn't have a book. So I had asked the student beside me, you know, or she offered, she said, well, maybe you can use my book. So what I did know is she had a relationship with every other student in there other than me. And so they asked her many times, was she doing my work for me in the graduate course, as if I didn't apply and get accepted like everybody else in the, right? It was no, there's no quotas in getting into a graduate program. And so from there, I felt a sense of competition. You know, that's where I turned into my kind of sports world and say, you know, you think I can't. So then I say, you know, I'm just like sports, I'm gonna chase the highest level of education. That's what I'm gonna do. And so even once I got the highest level of education, and I like MC too, but when I first started, I was in a meeting where everyone was being introduced by their title except me. And it was interesting because it didn't really, to me, I didn't think about Dr. Dunn. It didn't really make a difference because it didn't matter in my community. But at that moment, I felt the need to say, you know, it's Dr. William Dunn, you know, at that moment. And they said, oh, I didn't know. Well, you did know because I'm in this meeting just like everybody else is. And so, you know, and that didn't change my outside life as a black male. So we're talking about vulnerability. I was a single parent of 3 for 19 years. And in front of my children, many times, I got pulled over by an officer because he said that the light, the shining light on my license plates, the shining light, not my tail light, the shining light on my license plates was out in front of my building. I pulled over because he couldn't even stop at me. I wasn't speeding, and embarrassed me in front of my 3 children as an adult, as titled adult. That's when I started saying titles don't really matter. Treat people like human beings first. So I don't leave with the title, right? Get to know me first, and it's still a battle. We're seeing it right now. You know, I lost 3 of my friends to street violence before I was 21, and we're still watching this happen in the world right now. There's no other race and ethnic group or gender who's being killed at the hands of police officers, as they state, other than a black male. You're not hearing white men getting shot, not hearing about white females being shot. You hear maybe a few black females being shot, but you hear about black males, and statistics will tell you being killed every single day versus being apprehended or rehabbed. So it still happens. And so me chasing this high level of education was to be able to change the narrative on not even saying something. So when people see somebody else that looks just like me, they would think twice before they assume who they are. And for those who came up in the same environment as I did, they would know that it's not about how you start, it's what you do with that start. So, you know, it's been a challenge. You know, it's vulnerable sharing this story. I've never shared this story in an entire space. And I felt like I could do it in the education space. Now, I've shared this story on my journey as a speaker, but it's been with a specific group. You know, I speak to a lot of colleges, university athletes, and tell them about it's not about how you start. So trust is important, right? And so once you can create that relationship, speak to someone, acknowledge their existence, right? Find out their story, then that will begin to trust. And I think that will be how we can cultivate a sense of belonging.
I'm just speechless. This has been extraordinary, extraordinary, extraordinary. Please give them another wonderful round of applause. Thank you.